Hey guys, welcome back to Parkitect. Today's episode we're going to be jumping into Honey Hills, the one that I explained in our last episode. Let me just grab the plane. So the description reads, a small mountain resort is looking to expand its business while retaining its alpine charm, starting with the initial investment of a flying coaster as a flagship attraction. Develop this hillside forest into a thriving roller coaster paradise. Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. 400 guests, no loans, operating cost of 2,000. Okay, an overall park rating of 75. That seems pretty straightforward. Have a guests of 200 or more, and then complete by year 2 of December, which I'm going to fully ignore. So my initial thoughts was to do a honey bee theme because it would be quite fitting for a place called Honey Hills. So here's the coaster called Bumblebee. The one thing wrong with this coaster is that it's purple. It should be yellow, so I will be changing that. And we have a glitch. So this happens every once in a while. You open a coaster and all the guests are in the restraints are opened, and so everybody should be falling out to their death. But it's super funny to see that. But the main idea is to do a Bumblebee honey pot theme with some rides and stuff. Let's go see the rides we have so far. Carousel, car ride, Ferris wheel, gentle monorail, spiral slide, all good ones. Gentle monorail might be useful for something. I haven't used that yet. Thrill rides, Gravitron, jumper, launch drop tower, all good stuff. Coasters. We got some good stuff in the beginning. Oh, steel coaster. We'll probably build that right off the bat. I just have to figure out where I'm building stuff first. It's very mountainy here. I'm going to try to preserve that as much as I can. Let's go see what the scenery we got. Oh, we got nothing. We got nothing available. Got it. Alrighty then. It looks like I'm not even allowed to have some of these pieces, so that's medieval. That's a sci-fi piece right here. And those are pillars that I can't have. I know those are pillars. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think this is Silverette's scenario again. There's a fire watchtower. That's neat. With cable pieces that I can't use. So I have scenery to research. That's probably step number 1, actually. I think I'm going to research decorations right off the bat. But we're going to try with the generic theming. I can pull off some honey stuff, like honey-themed shops or something. Something that starts out over here, and then maybe we can use some of the flat rides to kind of anchor ourselves first, and then, yeah, go from there. So it'll be interesting. Actually, I didn't look at the scenarios. One of these gives... Oh, this one gives me a reward of 5,000. Oh, good to know. So if I get that real quick, it can be okay. I don't have a loan pulled out, do I? Always have to double check. No, I don't. But I start with 30,000, which is a pretty big chunk of cash. I could pull out more money now. Never thought about that. Ooh, I have like no food options. Ooh, we have to. Ooh, okay. No, the strategy would be to let's get food first because I can do decoration later. And actually, this might be a very risk on my part is to buy another research team and research decorations at the same time. So we'll do easily 100 from each team, and then let's see if they research faster this way. This is a risk on my end. And then maybe I can pull out a loan later. But maybe is to fix the price for this. This should be like $12, to be honest. Yeah, this should be like $12. And I would change the color of it later. And maybe change the station to make it match more of my theme. Because, I kind of like it. I'm going to keep the station. But I'm going to add some like honey themed stuff. Like some maybe honeycombs and some honey and other things. So let's get on building this interesting scenario. So let's get going. Okay, off to working on Honey Hills. So usually when I jump into any of the scenario maps at this point, I usually change the paths colors because usually they're in their default colors. So changing them always gives me a baseline of what I'm trying to go for, and the theme would be this time is a rustic honey or honeybee themed area, and the main references actually I pulled from for this build was those little miniature ceramic buildings that you buy from a company called Apartment 56. So that was my big inspiration pull, was from them, because they have really cute little buildings that are really well detailed, and they kind of just fit well with the aesthetic of Parkitect in my opinion. And so the first building was kind of based off of one of the pictures I found. So apparently Department 56 had a couple bee themed like store fronts, and so one of them was like this rustic western looking excuse me, like a honey themed like convenience store kind of way, but it's very rustic, very western. So I felt that was very fitting for Honey Hills, because we're in a forest in hills, and I can imagine a rustic building being up there, because we're in the wilderness, so that worked out. So the color schemes here are your tans, your greens, your yellow. So yellow is going to be my main color I'll be using throughout this build, because those are the color of bumblebees, are yellow. So funny how this map's name actually dictated on my theming more than, let's say, a set theming already in place, because the thing that's on the map only is the station for the bumblebee coaster and the fire watch tower that's off in the corner of the map. That's your only point of references for theme for this map, and so that doesn't really help you with anything. But I kind of leaned into the word honey, and then I went from there, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a little village or a little town, like a tourist town that sells really high quality honey or something, and their mascot's a bee, so it makes sense to do that. And then kind of just spawned into that and just kind of grew. And it's kind of how I usually design things, is it kind of just snowballs. So it's not being afraid to experiment, and also I've never even done a honey theme before, honestly, so this was all new territory for me, and so it's kind of exciting and scary thing to do at the same time, but I think it worked out pretty well. There are some things I do not like that I did at the end of this whole park build, like I'll explain them as we go along, but most of the buildings I especially like the honey spot. It's actually one of my favorite buildings I've built. It has some pretty nice quality of details and stuff like that. The chimney's actually all made out of shapes because I didn't have the chimney pieces, but again, that's what I think I love about Parkitect, is that every piece can be used to emulate another theme if you don't have that theme set researched. So like majority of the stuff right now I have is just, I think it's just the generic theming that I had available, and none of it was available yet. So like Western or Medieval wasn't available until I researched that, I think, later. But that's kind of the point. It's like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle. It's a challenge. It can be frustrating when I'm trying to build something particular that I want and I don't have the theming pack for it, so that sometimes also dictates what gets built next. So for like this next building, again, another copy from another little Department 56 build. It's more going to be what's it going to be, like more like a warehouse bottling plant for honey. So that's where the burger stand sits. I will build that in a second, because I'm just trying to figure out my money problems. Well, the money problems in this level weren't that bad. I was making buco bucks because of the already existing coaster. I bumped the pay from $9 to I think 12, and then just sat there the whole time at $12. So I was making bank regardless. This map did rain a lot, but that was annoying. So we'll talk about that later. Right now I went and searched for fall colors to do a trees in a fall setting, because it felt very natural to have that color palette with the yellow, because they kind of matched in tone. So I just Googled search really quickly and said, okay, I want autumn colors, and I found all the hex codes and just copied them down and saved them in. So there you go, hex codes. So that was pretty simple to do, and then I just did mesquite trees and maple trees to cover the most of the scenery. I did keep most of the other trees that are already in the map, so like the regular old trees from the game, I kept them in, but I kind of replaced them with the newer trees, kind of doing a mix and match tone, which is fine. It's kind of a mixed bag, but those old trees need to be redone, I think, in the future someday. Hopefully, maybe, who knows. But here's the burger stand that's going to be turned into like a more industrial feeling, more square set shape than the first building, the honey spot. So this one's just going to be more red tones, greens, kind of in the same realm. And I think I used yellow as well to give it that connecting theme of it's a honeybee themed building. And I do like using those new windows that are honeycomb shaped, but they're not. They're actually, what are they? Hexagons, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 sides. Yeah, a hexagon. But they're kind of elongated. But it works, looking like honeycombs, so might as well use them. I've used those windows before for other things. They have some really great angles for like sci-fi doors and things like that. But in this case, I used them more for imitating honeycombs, so that worked out really well. So yeah, just doing some different awning details or ways to do an awning with shapes. I kind of like having the stripe there. That worked out. Having your brown trims and borders and pillars also works as well. And then kind of just as the building kind of just grows. Because sometimes when a building gets started, I usually just get a rough shape of it, and then the roofs kind of do their thing, and then I kind of experiment and figure out what looks good and what looks unique. And then I usually do my cylinder or my shape technique on top of all roof caps, because I think that looks really well. Well, it looks nicer than just leaving it blank. And then there's a tank that I added. I'm assuming that has honey in it, or maybe milk. I don't know, it can have anything in it, but it's just adding an industrial feel, kind of pulls it together. Stuff like that. And yeah, just more yellow tones. Again, this is just keeping it all cohesive with themselves. I do like these little shelves I made with the scaffolding pieces, and just adding some pillars to add some structure to them, so I do like that. I think I called this shop the Sweet Burgers because there's a burger stand in there, and that made sense to do so. Oh, so it looks like I got the medieval pack research, because I think I was researching themes right off the bat, and I think I also bought a second research team to, well, research more themes or rides at the same time. So I was researching quite quickly because I wanted some particular themes or rides to help with the more theme of my idea of it being a theme park themed to bees or honey. It's more leaning on the honey side because it's not like the Bee Movie where I made a bee town, but not really. So we jump over to our spiral slide that's been around since the park opening, and I felt like it was fitting to add a bumblebee prop on top out of shapes, so that worked out quite well. I was quite happy with the results of this little bee, and I kind of pulled in the spiral slide in with the rest of the park at this point. So the spiral slide actually works really it performs so well with guests. It's so funny how it always has a full line. I only have it charged for I think $1.50 or $2, I can't remember, and guests still go and do it. It's so funny. Over here we jump over to another little shop. For a while I felt like this area wasn't complete without a third building, so I decided to make a very simple like pop-up stand made very quickly and very easily, and so I just called this the Little Bee. So we have the Honey Spot, Sweet Burgers, and then the Little Bee are all the shops in this little like festival village, if you want to call it. Yeah, it's a festival village, like a tourist trap. Kind of the idea floating in my head. Not a fleshed out story like my other parks, but that's kind of the story I'm telling in my head, or the lore of how this would be set up. I'm also still keeping in mind that this is still a theme park that was built for this particular reason of telling a story of like a little village that sells honey, and I don't know, it's just something that I kind of throw together as I build and play. Is that I'm playing this in my head, is like, so this building has a sense of story. Why is it built like this? and what does it serve its purpose. That's kind of how it goes, and it just kind of goes from there. I like using the pots from the, I think those are for the medieval pots, and just filling with honey with cylinders, or not cylinders, it was a half hemisphere. They use those. Those actually look great. I like that, kind of reminds me of honey, so I did that. So we jump over to here where I cleared a whole bunch of land and prepped it for a coaster station. I'm going to do a steel coaster. And this one's going to be themed to like a industrial honey factory. We're going to call it Honeyco. And since I was building this coaster, I decided to model it after Dragonfire's drop. So the Dragonfire's drop is a steel coaster from Arrow that goes down into a corkscrew and then goes the rest of the layout. So I kind of felt like it was possible to do in Parkitect, and so I was like, yeah, I want to do that. It looks unique and different than I've normally built. And so that's what I did. It's not exact layout of Dragonfire because, again, this is my own layout of a steel coaster, but I like the corkscrew. It looks pretty cool and just different from my other layouts that I've done before. And I like that the contrast between the flying coaster and the steel coaster kind of just meet together out in the wilderness part of the park, or the hill parts. So I don't know if I would qualify this coaster as a terrain coaster because it's not too low to the ground, though. No, I wouldn't qualify it. It's a little too high in some places, and I added that lake in the middle to add some water features, to add some interest, basically. Yeah, it looks good. I think the at this point, I think this coaster layout is one of my favorites. Versus, actually, what is my favorite layout? I never really thought about that. What's my favorite layout so far? I like my Mine Train coaster from A Mystic Oasis. That was a fun one because it was a pyramid. Oh, I like the Kraken coaster I made for Skull Mountain from the Pirates one, Batavia K. I like that one too. That was good. Yeah, it's hard to choose which one of my layouts I liked. This one's a good layout. I think it's a good layout. Again, you might not think it's good, but I think it's alright. Especially like the corkscrew in the beginning, which is a weird thing to do, but it works. So right now I'm trying to figure out my best way to connect back to the station. I knew that I needed a good long enough brake run and a block brakes and a place to hopefully put a transfer station, because I want a transfer track and a maintenance station, maintenance shed, to make it look realistic. Again, I always have that in my forethought, is to make it at least somewhat realistic, but it doesn't have to be. Again, it's Parkitect. But that's what I did. So in the case of building this building, I went for even more generic shape. So a lot of rectangles, and it's supposed to be an industrial, corporate type of bee factory or honey factory. So I went for your typical metal building with concrete structure, and the color tone are yellow, white, and black. Very, very basic, but it kind of matches the bee theme. I do like that this coaster's chain lift is on a diagonal. Makes this coaster a very different shape versus, let's say, putting it chain lift on its normal grid stance. So I like that it goes over the station, so we get some interaction with that. And that also dictates how high it goes, because that's where the coaster track sits. So sometimes when I'm working on a station like this that's very simple, sometimes I overthink on the details, and sometimes I get stuck on actually finishing that side of this, or finishing the station. So I try not to do this a lot, but sometimes you get stuck as a creator. You're just working on things and you overthink it, and then it turns ugly, and then you're like set back an hour and you're like, well, why did I do that? I was just overthinking the process. So sometimes not overthinking and just thinking of a simple way to do something, like just say walls, borders, and a couple different shapes. It's not too crazy, and it still pulls off what you needed to do. I think that's okay, and you gotta tell yourself sometimes, I think, to just take it easy, and doing it simple sometimes is better than doing it complicated. So kind of the lessons I've learned in this build, kind of. But I enjoyed building this little building. I especially like the honeycomb pattern I did with the windows. That's my favorite part, actually. I think that also what brought in the theme better for me was that piece alone. So if I'm gonna give the MVP, it would be that piece. It would be that window piece, not the chocolate bar at this point, because I haven't used the chocolate bar in a while. Actually, oof, I haven't. Yeah, that is the MVP piece right now for this particular theme, because it helped kind of pull things together, and it's like a happy little accident. But not really. It was kind of planned, because I kind of had that forethought in my head when I was dreaming up this project. I go through my usual level of finding reference shots, so I spent about, I want to say 5 to 6 hours looking up pictures online. And then while I'm looking at pictures, I always look at an image and be like, okay, that wall, can I use a shape piece, or can I use a candy piece, or ooh, that shape right there, that could be a window flipped backwards. That's always what I'm thinking in my head. That's kind of the thought process that it goes through. I'm always looking at through the lens of a Parkitect, and I'm looking at pieces. I'm like, that could be a Parkitect piece, or that could be replicated in Parkitect because it's square base. So it's kind of how that it goes in my head. So if that even makes sense, I don't know, but just the process of how things are done, especially through my eyes. So right now I'm just doing some simple smokestacks, painting them yellow and black like a honeybee, kind of fitting. I don't know if it makes any sense to have them way out there in the tiny building, but I kind of had to do that to kind of extend it outward from the main building, and it also extended the queue back there to kind of add some, like a bullpen in a sorts. So also while building this coaster, I had this empty hill that I had to figure out. I was testing earlier, actually. You saw it a couple minutes ago. I did it with the square flower base. That doesn't work because I was already at a diagonal. So I took these bushes and painted them all the autumn colors that I had, and just kind of lined the ridge. It works out really well, and I kind of like the idea of having flowers. Actually, they're going to be surrounding the entire building. You'll see that in a second after I build the transfer track. But you guys see me do transfer tracks now a lot at this point. It's just an extended coaster, or not extended, but it's another coaster. I build a I build the parking lot for it, or the parking for it, and then I build a slide switch of some sort. This one's an S-bend version versus a regular full gauge. Well, I don't know how you call it full gauge, but it's like a I'm losing my words. It's just a full section of track that can house a train and slide it left or right into the station. So that's kind of a typical version. The only thing I didn't like about my placement was that it sits so high above the lake, but it had to go. It had to be put because, again, I want some realism, and sometimes I feel like a coaster without a maintenance shed feels naked now because I've done so many at this point. So, it is what it is. Some more honeycomb theming on the side of it, just to kind of match it with the rest of the building, kind of bring it all together. And then I think I add a slogan on the building that says something. I don't remember. Let's see if that comes up. But yeah, there's honey. Oh, here it comes. So I just kind of put in, what did I say? Taste sweetness. That's just so stupid. That's a dumb saying, but it works. Whatever. So here comes more of the flowers that kind of just surround the building. I kind of wanted to suggest that those are the flowers that supply the honey to the factory. So the bees go out, get the honey, and then go back into the building. I don't know, something silly in my head. But I kind of like the idea of having it all together. And at this point, the park has now distinct areas. You have the little town, tourist town at the bottom. You have the high corporate area up on top of the Honeyco. So there's kind of a distinct areas kind of forming as I build. But yet, they all still share the same theme, which is honey. So this works out pretty well, actually. So I'm quite happy with the results at this point. Now, I'm pretty happy, actually. Well, thinking back to the buildings and stuff I've already done. I'm pretty happy with this build. I'm surprised that I was able to pull it off, actually. I'm always surprised, actually, at this point. I'm always surprising myself, but hey, I digress. So onto our last building of this time lapse, because we'll be doing a tour of the park at its operations and stuff like that, and we'll do some very small tours. But I felt like this area was empty and alone, and so I felt like adding an additional tourist trap building, something a little different but match the style of the other buildings that are further down the road. I was originally going to make it thatched, and then kind of didn't work out. I didn't feel like it was necessary, so I went for a normal, typical roofing. And I think the color changes from yellow to brown, actually. And I think the whole color changes here, so yep, there it goes. See, it's always which is cool about Parkitect. You can get to paint all the walls anytime you want if you feel like it doesn't work. So having that flexibility really helps with the design process, because sometimes I feel like I'm always indecisive when I'm working on sometimes. And sometimes I just jump back and forth from things, but this worked out pretty well. And I think it just houses a cookie stand, so something easy for guests to come up, walk up, get a snack, continue down the boulevard. And then what I was thinking, I was like, well, now I need like old-fashioned beehives nearby, so it would be fitting to have a little area next to the building to house little beehives out of shapes. So it kind of brings them together more, and kind of suggests that there are actually honeybees here, maybe kind of flying around. Kind of would be dangerous for guests to be nearby, but it's there. So we're gonna quickly finish that up and then go over to the park and see how it's going. So here we are in the park, and I think it's doing pretty well at this moment. And there's some things that I need to iron out for the next phase of the park's growth, and to kind of expand on the bee theme. The bee theme has been harder to expand than I expected at this point. I mean, I do like this little village area. It's not a village, more like a farm, Main Street type of western. It's very western-y, very rustic type of bee theme. I do like how this looks, and then I kind of like the idea of having an industrious looking honey factory, which was kind of a cool concept to kind of jump on. And then building this coaster was fun. I do like this a lot. The only thing that I'm worried about is filling in the gaps and things of that nature. So I'm glad I put this in finally. This was kind of bugging me. This area here was completely empty. I'm glad I put in some buildings and some trees. That actually helps out flush out the area. I am finding it difficult with this scenario is the hills. The hills are quite annoying when I'm trying to build structures that kind of are cohesive with each other, so I'm trying to work around that. And I want to try to incorporate Bumblebee into the map. So I've been testing out some like honey spills on top of it. This is just a test area I was trying. I think we're going to change the station because it doesn't match the rest of what I'm doing over here. So I will change it. But the big plan is to, I did clear it, you can kind of tell here that I was clearing these trees out. That I'm going to flatten this, make it a little bit more, not as steep, but maybe a couple tiers of layers, or tiers of height, and make a bee village like Bugs Land. So like a smaller version, there'll be like houses for bees, or I don't know, fairies, kind of like a fairyland type of thing. That's kind of the vision in my head. I have some concept art that I found and some art, and so I kind of want to do that here. And then this will change, this station will change in that architecture that will be built here. That's kind of the objective. As it rains in my park, it's whatever, it is what it is. So that's the plan at the moment. So let me think here. If I lower these a little bit and kind of get myself an idea. Yeah, I think like something like, yeah, see how it's kind of like a little crater? I kind of want that to, yeah, this kind of works, and then I can lift this up a little bit just to help it match. Kind of go toward the path, to kind of have that pathway go up. Oh, can't do that. Maybe we'll lower this one a little bit. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Kind of go up, and then this path could come up this way, but I need to lower it a little bit and kind of make it match better. Actually, let's make this down to 1 so I don't do too much. Yeah, there we go. That can go. This can trail up as a 1 path and then turn into a plaza, main street, or double path. Kind of extend this way there. And so I could stick a Ferris wheel and a gentle monorail ride kind of going in and out of the buildings. And then have a couple key buildings and maybe an additional restaurant up here. Yeah, I feel like this should actually go down too. This should be actually completely flush to kind of accommodate all the buildings that I have in my head. That's kind of the object. That will kind of fill in my area between what I built before, this is my stuff, to kind of try to incorporate what Silverette built over here with Bumblebee. I think Silverette made this coaster. Yeah, I think Honey Hills is one of his maps. Yeah, I don't want to dog him on his station. I like his station. It's great. It looks wonderful. It needs to match this. So unless I add things to it, maybe change the colors, maybe that'll help. But maybe adding more honey, kind of just spilled all over it. But it should look like it's made of like leaves and twigs and giant acorns. Oh my gosh, yes, giant acorns. That's exactly what I need to do. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, that's the idea. So, yeah. So far, the park's doing great. At this moment, I honestly could beat the map now. Oh, I can't. No, I haven't done the 2000 yet. I've been trying, and it's been very close. I can easily pay off my loan, because I only pulled a very small one, just to prevent the scenario from finishing before I was actually, like, concrete finish, in a way. So, yeah. So, the plan is to build a little bee village with some buildings and oversized, I don't know, grass and leaves and acorns and just like a Bugs Land type of thing, and try to incorporate the Bumblebee coaster into that and kind of make both areas kind of join together. And yeah, that will be our next project in the next time lapse. So let's get on to building this village. Okay, so let me first iterate, because I said in the break that I want to make this like a fantasy village, and I kind of got stuck working on this section. Man, oh man, oh man. So this is usually what happens when I work on a build that is like unknown territory, especially a honey bee themed park that I've never done before. So I kind of got stuck in places, and this was one of those examples. I like most of what I did here, but some of it just doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't work. Again, I don't know what you guys would think, but I tried my best to figure out what I wanted to do with this area. I knew I wanted to make it fantasy, but I kind of leaned on to just making a giant, for example here, a giant beehive that is a modern version. So just a typical beehive that you find at a farm. I found this cool. I like doing this. This was neat. And I made 2 of them actually next to each other. You'll see that in a second-ish. But it doesn't really fit the fantasy theme, honestly, but it was kind of fun build to do. I liked it. So this area is kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. So in my head originally, I wanted like a bee village, like a it would be run by bees, and you're the size of a bee, and their houses would have been made out of trees or logs or other things like that. But I just couldn't grasp around it. I couldn't like get it concrete down when I was working on an idea, or I was working on a example. I was actually just messing with pieces. I was like, it's not working. So I built the hive first to see that looked good. I liked it, and I kept it. So I kind of continued with the theme of still being miniature. So I was kind of testing out the idea of having honey kind of everywhere, and then the miniature or the mini monorail kind of worked out to be kind of enclose the land. And also because I had this little hill to kind of occupy between the little tourist trap and then the main coaster, kind of needed to happen. And I knew that building this last area, I was going to go over my operating costs that I needed to win the scenario anyway. It was 2,000, so yeah, this was kind of the hodgepodge stuff, but it was also experimentation, and you shouldn't necessarily be afraid of it, because in my eyes right now, I don't like this area as much as I do the other areas of my park. But you guys might find some inspiration from it, so that's why I kind of dug my heels in and just continued moving forward and trying to do new things. Because doing new things is scary and difficult, but sometimes, well, anything that you do new, you might get something great out of it and experience something awesome, and you learn cool things. And so I learned some new things here too. So I wanted to also keep the tree idea in, or the logs. So the station for the mini monorail became a log of some sort. Kind of not, but I kind of made a giant tree, kind of just sprawled on the side of the hill, kind of cover up the station a little bit. I liked it. It's kind of fun to do. The basalt pillars are perfect for honeycombs because they're exactly the same shape, and this was quite wonderful. I am not the first person to do this. Someone else did this on the workshop. There's like a honeybee themed scenario called Honeylands or something. I don't think it's called Honeylands, but it's called something else. But go search it up. Just to type in the word honey on the workshop or bee, you'll find it. It's all just the color yellow. And this gentleman used the salt pillar. It's genius. And so I used it too, and just actually pulled in this area more because of that piece. I wish I used it more in other areas, but it kind of made this area kind of unique because of that piece. So that was really fun to use. So you can see as the station kind of grows and stands with all the tree trunks and pieces, and I did that simple roof. This is actually where the thatch roof comes back in, so I used some plants to kind of do that, to kind of do more nature themed. And that worked out well. I'm not in love with the station, but it is acceptable in my book that it looks nice and it kind of pulls it in. It's not the best area. Again, I've already said this more than once now, but you can tell in my voice I'm like, not in love with it. But it's enough to be in my park. Yeah, there's the thatched roofing out of my simple bush plant that I usually use. Looks pretty good. And I actually get to do some honey. I start sprinkling honey all over the place, so suggesting that bees have been just going around, buzzing around, doing things. And honey's just kind of dripping out of everything. So, yeah, there's the honey on the trunk of the tree. Looks pretty good. It is a different area. So again, the areas have their own distinct feels. So you have the industrial Honeyco area where the coaster is, and then you have the little tourist town at the center, and then you have this little fantasy kiddie area, and it works for me. It just doesn't meet my certain Astro standards sometimes, but sometimes I have to let that go just to finish the park, or just to kind of bring it together. But if I did a honey theme again, I'd probably do some more research on some stuff, maybe do more experimentation. But sometimes working on these type of videos, I sometimes have a time crunch, and something that kind of impedes on the creative process. But that's reality, and sometimes you have to kind of roll with the flow, roll with the punches, if you want to say it like that. So enough about that. So just continuing on with the details and trying to bring it all together. So shapes, plants, things like that, trying to just bring it together. I did like that use of using the cedar wood trees, or the cedar pines. I think that's what they're called. They're cedar trees. as like tall grass. I've used this before in a build for a Toy Story build I did for Battle of the Builders. I think I used that technique, so it's always fun to use. So using more basalt pillars to kind of suggest there's piles of honey everywhere, kind of giving you that transition look. So it worked out. And then some grass, some more plants, some tilia trees, always good to use, kind of fill in the spaces. That's kind of what plants are made for, I think, honestly, for a theme park. You just use those to fill in places that kind of maybe hide sight lines or to highlight areas. Always fun to do. There's more basalt pillars. Man, those look good. When they're all together like that, kind of spaced out, they look like honeycombs, and it looks actually quite wonderful. So the last building that I was having to deal with was the carousel cover, because I've done so many carousel covers that I'm always trying to find a way to make them more interesting from the last. And sometimes that is the crutch of doing these type of series, but I just did a simple one just to complete it because I was tired of looking at a not covered carousel. It looks so plain and boring, so I needed to cover it, and I do cover it in a second. But looking back on it, I'm okay with the area actually. I was hitting on it earlier, right? It looks nice to me now. Kind of fits together, but I could have spent a little bit more time on it, honestly, to maybe work out some of the bugs. But that's kind of the point of this whole series, is learning and dealing with the design process, because sometimes you don't always hit it the right way, always. That's like not realistic at all. So I was running out of steam at this point because I wanted to get the scenario done, kind of fill in the spaces. And I did say in the beginning of this video that I was going to do some new type of station for the coaster. So spoiler, that didn't happen because I ran out of steam at this point. That's fine. It's always a learning process for these type of projects, which really I should get back to work on American Adventure. Yeah, that should be happening soon. I might be getting my steam back up on that because I have a waterfront to finish while doing this campaign, because I'm still going to do this too. So don't worry about that. I'm still working on those things and continuing with that. But at this point, the park looks good. So we're going to do a quick tour of the park and show you all the little details and things like that. Okay, welcome to Honey Hills. So let me first start off with, I need to finish the scenario first. Actually, I need to complete the goals. So the goals are, where's the goals? Let's go find them real quick. So we need 2,000 operating profit, so we should get that in a second. And then I need to pay off a loan debt. And that's actually very easy to do because I picked one of the smaller ones to pay off, and so I'm going to pay that off right now. And then there you go. We have now, we have to wait 2 months for this. Oh my goodness. So while that sits, that's fine. We can wait 2 months. Let's just explore Honey Hills. So I want to state basically, this map was harder, not harder. It was easy in the goals, but hard on the theming. Because I said in the beginning I wanted to do honeybees, honey, and that worked out to a point, and then I ran out of ideas. But I'm glad that I was able to somewhat cohesively pulled it all together. The only thing that I'm disappointed with myself is doing nothing with the station. That's the only thing I'm disappointed about me, is that I didn't have the brain power or the drive to decorate it anyway. I mean, I added some trims on top, that's it, but anything else about it I didn't do. So I'm a little disappointed in myself, but it is what it is. But everything else about the map, I like it. I like what I've done. Like, for example, this Honeyco factory for the steel coaster, which is, I think, pretty gnarly. Actually, let's go write it right now because I haven't done a POV in a while. Yeah, so this coaster is very simple. Actually, it's not that simple. I mean, it was inspired. Well, it was not simple. What's the word? I'm looking for a different word. And regardless, my brain is full of honey at this point because I'm just done with bees and honey and looking at yellow. But the coaster was inspired by Dragonfire at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, I think. Yes, and that corkscrew coaster. So kind of wanted to imitate that with the steel coasters. Kind of not necessarily the layout, but the beginning part with the corkscrew in the beginning. So that was kind of the main idea. But I do like the overall layout. I'm surprised I was able to complete this scenario, or going to complete the scenario, with only one additional coaster. So it just shows you how powerful coasters are, especially when you charge 12 bucks for them. And so yeah, this coaster was fun to build. The only other thing I don't like is the how far this sits, but I want realism to a point, so I'm gonna keep it there. And it's like a nice little advertisement of Honeyco. And then here's the little village underneath. This is all like your normal tourist trappy type of place, very honey themed. So honey spot. This was called the Little Bee. It's like a little shop store front. And you have the jumper. I think I called this Hive Jumper. I don't know why it's called that, but it sounds good. Sweet Burgers is just a burger stand, kind of a, I don't know, just another building. Top spin, and then my fantasy area, kind of my mix mashed of more bee themes. I do like using these basalt pillars for honeycombs. It works out relatively well. Like this looks great. I like the giant beehives I made, like the ones that you have at a bee farm. So that was cool. Oh yeah, I don't want to forget the building that's over here I built as well. This is another bee themed building with some actual beehives here. So just imagine there's actually bees going around. The guests are kind of walking around, feeling that up, and then you have flowers here. So yeah, overall the theme is pretty cohesive. Let's see if we can complete this scenario. Let's just quickly go fast because I need to know if I'm able to beat it. Oh, I probably am. I'm making basically $3,000 a month. Oh, because I paid a $6,000 loan, it's gonna cancel. Oh, I should have waited after. Yeah, so do I lose that goal? Oh no, I don't. Okay, so I made 2,690. Okay, never mind. Okay, I thought I just shot myself in the foot for a second. Huh. Okay, cool. So I'm still making buco bucks at this point. So even though it says I didn't make any money, yeah, it's right here. Operating. No way, I'm reading my goals wrong. I'm so bad at reading. So operating, it doesn't matter about this one right here. This can go in the negative all at once. It just needs operating. So operating would be meaning park commission to wages and actual tickets for the rides. All that is down here. Interesting. Okay, now I understand. So this all included is operating costs. Got it. Sometimes I don't look at the financials side of Parkitect sometimes. Sometimes I'm more focused on the scenery stuff. And so it's nice to learn this every once in a while or refresh my memory on how this works. But I should be able... Now I fully understand. So I'm spending some pretty big bucks here. So I'm only spending $310 on maintenance, roughly $320. So building maintenance would be my depots and break rooms. I only have one. Wages, I'm spending almost $1,000 on employees. Okay, makes sense. Loan fees are going to be $0 now because I just paid off the loan, so that's fine. So, yep, there's the scenario. It is complete. Alrighty then, that's pretty cool. So there's our scenario. Let's quickly save this so that I don't lose progress. Save. There we go. Now let's go on to the main menu to see what we get. I know what we get. I think it's the no, not the station. It's the watchtower. Yeah, there it is. The watchtower, which is a very simple build and effective. So we plop that down. So I'm assuming we get Coaster Canyon next. Yeah, so we have the option of Coaster Canyon or Hickory Hill. So that's the question, though. Do I want to do Steampunk and Coaster Canyon or Hickory Hill? Hickory Hill is a harder theme to work with because I don't have a theme in mind for Hickory Hill. It's kind of the same lines as Honey Hills. Okay, I'm thinking here. Nature Preserve. This park must abide by a local laws permitting structures to be built upon tree height. Okay. This one down here is Barren Desert Canyon with ample land available for construction for coasters. Okay, I'm probably going to lean on Coaster Canyon because I think a steampunk map would be fun to do. I just have to change up the way I do my steampunk maybe a little bit. Because, yeah, something like that. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching this campaign series so far. We're just going to barrel through it. But yeah, we'll probably do Coaster Canyon next. I want to thank my Patreons for the continued support. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can. It'll be linked in the description below. I'm trying to get some things straightened up in life right now. I'm going to try to maybe stream some more, do some more things for my Patreons. I keep saying that, but I'm trying to figure something out in my head. But it's sometimes failing, but we'll try it. I want to maybe do a multiplayer session with Patreons, see if that works out. But yeah, all in all, I'll catch you guys in the next episode of Parkitect. See you then. Bye.